Hi, um, my name is Vlad, and I am a web developer. I work part-time. I work at home, and I have a software business that sells one product for about 1 million Swedish kronor a year. I do handle all aspects of the business, so marketing, sales, support, even accounting. But what I mainly do, what I spend my most of the working hours a day, it's web development. And that is because I do believe that if your product has a market and it's above average, its quality is above average, it is going to sell by itself through word of mouth without the need of a big sales team or strong marketing efforts. So why do I highlight the word end users? If your product is being sold to the same person that actually use it, if the one that use it is the same person that pays for it, then things are simpler, are easier. But in my case and in many cases, the products are being used by somebody else than who pays for them. And I'm talking about, so in the case of software, IT managers in larger companies or in medium as well are the ones who pay and decide which software is going to be used for a certain need. And they do sometimes take really bad decisions and end up with poor quality software or unsuitable software, which is not, it doesn't improve productivity, and the end users, the employees and the clients who are forced to use it just hate it. That happens more often than, than it should. So my strategy is a bit different. Instead of focusing on the IT managers or the person that actually buys the product, I am starting with the end user and trying to figure out what they need, what they want, how I could make them happy so that they instead would ask the IT manager or whoever is responsible for supplying the company with solutions to buy my solution, my product. So these two are my goals. These are my only goals with the product. I never take into account what the IT manager asks or wants. So I always make everything I can to make sure that the end user is going to like the product and improve its productivity. So I'm trying to figure out what potential users, new users would like, so that I make new sales of my product. And of course, make sure that how the product develops will satisfy my existing customers so that I get continuous business. So how do I do that? How do I find out what the user wants, given that I sell to the IT managers and it's not the end users that I have access to? I cannot just go to my client company and ask their users, how do you like the solutions that, the software that you're using? So my only contact is the IT manager, and I try to make sure that their requests, I receive almost every day requests for changes in my product. They would like it to be in one way or another. But that is not always what the user wants. It's what the IT manager thinks the user wants. So what I do is I collect these requests for changes, feature requests, and I collect them over a long period of time, like several months before I start actually doing anything that my clients requested. And I try to notice if there are multiple requests that handle the same issues, the same functionality on my product. And that's because I will then get a confirmation there is a need for a change. And not just some weird idea that the IT manager had on how to improve the product that I'm selling. So I collect, as I said, via email or direct communication. My clients ask from me directly what they would need. But I also use all sorts of feedback tools. If you're familiar with user voice or user echo, it's a web-based place where users suggest changes on a product, and they get to vote. So one may post a suggestion for a change, and the other ones vote. And you get a pretty clear image of what the users, all the users would like and use. Survey, I use survey sometimes, but that's a pretty inefficient way of collecting feedback. We know that we really don't like spending time completing surveys. So what else I do? I look at other successful products, of course. And I look at competitors, my direct competitors, look at their websites, their product descriptions, list of features, and their public forums. I do spy on them. I look on their forums and those tools that I mentioned, that these are public online websites where you can access and see what users of my competitors would like of their products. That's very valuable information because they might have a bigger user base, or just take multiple competitors that you might have and you collect a lot of information on what will make the users happy. I also check non-competitors, and these are the big companies which provide similar products. So my product, it's a file sharing application. It's very similar to Google Drive. And obviously, I do not compete with Google Drive or Google. I'm, as a self-employed, that's ridiculous. But I do check with their products. Why? Because users expect products that are used for a certain task to work in a certain way, to look in a certain way. So you all, I'm sure, you use Microsoft OneBox, Dropbox, Google Drive, or one way of sharing files other than email online. It's more common nowadays. And you all know how these tools look like, and you know how they work. So if I hope that you guys will ever switch on using my product at any time, it's going to be important that my product is something that it's familiar to you. Something, it looks similar, it works similar, otherwise you won't be so convinced to switch solutions. So whatever you choose, yeah, that's it's funny compared to Frederick's talk. Whatever you choose to add to your product, change in your product, make sure you don't get too creative, or don't come up with brilliant ideas, or, yeah, you're laughing. Don't come up with anything that it's revolutionary, that it's innovative. I know many people have that as a focus, but as a small business or one-person business, that is just not the way it works. If you, of course, we are creative and we're always innovative. And if you want to put that creativity to some use, focus it on the business and not the product. So you focus it on the business processes, on how you develop the product, on how you support the product, how you sell, and so you are efficient there. But don't get creative with the product. Because as a person or a small business, regardless, it can be like 20 people in the company or 50 people in the company. If it's a small business and nobody knows about your work, you are not going to change the world. It's plain and simple. You do not have the choice of changing how people work or do things. Google can, Facebook can, huge companies can. You as a small business and medium-sized business, you cannot. So just, if you stop wasting effort on that and focus on the product, you will be way more efficient and will come up with a product which people will understand and understand why they should buy it from you.
Or if you're lucky, Google comes and gets you.
Or that's a positive outcome as well. So I do collect this information, these user requests, and I make a huge list of things that I should do to my product to improve it. And next question is, where do I start? I do this continuously on a daily basis. Every time somebody asks for something from me, I have a list, I put it there. And this list grows, so you need to sort it out because you cannot make all the changes everybody asks for you and you think they're great as a small business. You have to prioritize. So what I do is I assign points to each change. So if a request comes from a small company, I give it 1 point. If the request comes from a big company with a lot of users, I give it multiple points. Or if one request comes from multiple companies, it accumulates more points. So basically, I sort them by importance, if you will. And then I take them top to bottom, and I split these changes in 2 distinct categories. One is improvements of existing features. These are the most important changes, not the new features. And so improvements of existing features. That will make your product better, right, at its main purpose. So this is more important than finding new functionality for your product. So if your product already sells to some degree, improving the current functionality can only do good. New features. New features, that's a sensitive topic, has a lot to talk about, but I try to make sure not to include more than one big one in a product version. And that is because new features, first of all, they require a lot more work than improvements. And they are prone to problems, to errors. So you would like the changes that you add to your product. So this doesn't have to be a software product as mine. This applies to any kind of product, even physical ones. If you are adding new functionality to your product, that one is prone to problems. It's an untested functionality by your users on a long period of time. So that one is usually, new features are usually prone to problems, bugs in case of software, and that translates to a lot of customer support requests. And as a small business, you do not afford that. You would like to have to help your customers as little as possible. Focus on your product instead of their problems. That doesn't develop your, is not developing your business. And I choose from the improvements. That's what that's the bulk of my work. From that big list that I'm building, I usually pick up enough to give me work for a month or two in between product versions, so that the new product version it's relevant, has enough changes to warrant more business from the existing clients. About the new features that you add to your product, these usually take the focus from a version release of any kind of product. And because it's exciting, it's the cool factor. Small improvements of the existing functionality, sure, it's welcome, but it's not that wow. I do include new features for the wow factors so that new potential customers get attracted by this new version of the product. So if you don't include any kind of new features and only improvements, sure, it helps with the existing clients, but not with potential ones. And if a new feature, which can be complex, fails, then it will take the focus of your whole product version. It doesn't matter that you added tons of improvements on your existing functionality. If that new feature that was so cool and everybody talked about it failed, your update is a failure entirely. So that's how I do run my business, a one-man business.